Hello everyone. Today the purpose of this video is to make you understand what is the difference between a static picture and movement picture. So we do have two types of academic task. One is the figures with comparisons, that is number comparisons. You have these types of comparisons, the figure comparisons. Yeah, I'll show you the figures with comparisons. These types of numbers will be there, these types of numbers. So when we have these types of numbers, we group it into one group. So we can say that bar graph is one such, line graph is one such. Here, this pie chart is one such, and table is one such. So we do have these things. We have bar graph, line graph, pie chart, and table. So these are the four charts with figure comparisons. Whenever you see these particular pictures, you will be having some sort of mathematical figures, numbers there. So we need to do some statistical calculations there, some sort of statistical calculation. So either it can be higher and lower, or increase or decrease, or whatever it is. So some sorts of figures, some sorts of numbers are there in these types. So the other types are maps or flow charts, process diagram, life cycle. These are the other types of task one. So we have another classification of this first group, that the figures with number comparison. We call it classical academic task one. We call it classical academic task one, where we have a lot of numbers to compare. In this bar graph, line graph, pie chart, and table, we do have two types. One is static, another one is movement. So what is static chart and what is movement chart? This is another challenge here. So what do you mean by static chart? A static chart, this is an example of static chart. I don't have any time duration, two time frames are not there. See, for example, it is a static chart. It is the information is given for writers. A second comparison for writer is not given. Information is given for doctors. A second comparison for doctors is not given. See, for example, when this becomes movement, if I am going with writer, this is the bar for writer. This is in 1990. In 1992, it is this thing. In 1994, it is this thing. In 1996, it becomes this thing. So we can say these all are doctors, 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 doctors. So the proportion of doctors who worked, or the duration of work, duration of hours they work, was this thing. It doubled, it tripled, it fell. So I can say it doubled, I can say it tripled, I can say it increased, I can say it rose, I can say it grew, I can say it climbed. All these graphical languages I can use, that we call it change vocabulary. Change vocabulary is used here in this particular chart. We don't have a change vocabulary because writers is compared with doctors, not with another set of writers, and we don't have two time frames. We have writers, doctors, chefs, lecturers, lawyers, movie producers, programmers, and businessmen. All these charts are different. All these bars are different. It shows there is no increase. Chefs is not, so these two, I cannot compare these two. Can I compare these two? No, I cannot compare these two with this change vocabulary. What is a change vocabulary? Rose, grew, climbed, fell, dropped, slipped. All these things cannot be used to compare these two. Instead, I can say that was higher, this was lower. I could say this stands high, this is less, this is more, this is less, this is more, higher, lower, all these things I can. Most, least, I can use. The comparative words we can use here is most, least, higher, lower, more, less, fewer. All these vocabulary I can use here. Instead, if it is a movement chart, I could have used increased, decreased, fluctuated, remained constant. All these things I could have used. So this is the difference between a static data and a movement data. So it is the vocabulary used to compare. So the vocabulary used to compare here is these things. And the vocabulary used in a movement data where you have different time frames, that is increasing, decreasing, fluctuating, remaining constant, plateaued, leveled off, plummeted, plunged, dwindled off, hit the peak. Everything I can use there when we have different time frames. When we don't have different time frames, we don't use such vocabulary. We use these types of vocabulary: most, least, higher, lower, fewer, all these things. Okay, so I hope you have understood. This is an example for a static chart, as well as this is also an example for a static chart. We don't have any changes here. We can say this is the share, this is the share, this is the share. The share is higher, the share is lower, the share is more, the share is less. This is the most, this is the least. That's what the comparative words here. Instead of increasing, decreasing. If I want to use increase or decrease in this particular pie chart, I have to have one more pie chart with the same denominations like doctors, lawyers, and all. And I have to say it is 1990 and this is 2000. Then I can say it increased, it decreased, all these things I can use. So that if that comes, if two time frames are there, definitely we can say increase and decrease. As far as two time frames are not there, you can say it, you cannot say that, you cannot use such change vocabulary. You can use only the static vocabulary, that is more, fewer, less, most, least, highest, lowest, higher, lower, all these things. So I hope you must have understood the difference between the static data and movement data. Thank you all.